Hey there, I'm Danielle D'Onofrio. Welcome to the Rehab for Everyone podcast. This is episode 1, and I am so excited to finally be bringing this podcast to you. It's one of those things where I'm like, I have to finally just set up the lights, set up the camera, get the microphone on, and start recording, because I've been thinking about it forever, and that's how these things go. Sometimes you just have to press record and get going and start and just accept that it's not going to be perfect, and just do it. One of the tricks that I like to play with my mind is just coming to any new project, any endeavor, and just saying, this is just a practice. This is just like my trial run. And at least I sit down and do it with the mindset that it doesn't have to be perfect. And then I actually get something done. So there's a little tip for you right off the bat at the start of this podcast. So I am a healing and personal development coach. I am currently writing a book that offers guidance to people who have survived difficult things in their past and are sort of failing to thrive in different areas of their life, whether you're, let's say you're overweight or you're anxious, you're struggling with depression, broke, right? You can't find the right relationship, and just there's things that aren't working in your life right now, or you've become a parent and you're really struggling with parenthood and with, temper issues, or with knowing the right thing to do as a parent. There's so many things that as adults we struggle with. And I found that about myself as well. It especially was, very evident when I became a parent. And I realized that things were just hard. And it felt like things were harder for me than they were for other people. And of course, we never know what other people are struggling with, right? Most of us can make our lives and make ourselves look very calm and peaceful to the outside world and to everyone around us, right? Because we want to put up this facade and make sure everyone knows that we're okay, when behind closed doors or deep down inside, we're like really struggling. And when I had my first child, I have 2 sons now. When I had my first son and I became a mom for the first time, it really hit me like a freight train that things were hard. And it really forced me to look at myself and my life up until that point and start to get very honest about why I was struggling and why things felt so hard. And why I was so stressed and really full of shame. I couldn't put the word shame on my emotions at that point because I just didn't have the awareness or the understanding. But I knew something just was off. And I started to do some research, and I, found other people online who struggled with things that sounded similar to me. And I was able to connect my struggles and difficulty with really a lot of the things that I had experienced in the past as a kid growing up. So a child and a teenager, and my family life, and some of the experiences that I had in sports and in school, and overall just all of the experiences and people and beliefs that were now shaping my life as an adult as I had become a parent. And, a lot of those experiences and beliefs and relationships that I had coming up as a child and a teen, I went into adulthood, and those things, it turns out, really didn't serve me very well. And I felt like as a 28-year-old new mother, I really had to learn how to think like an adult for the first time. I had a child. I knew that being a mother was the most important thing in the world, and I did not want my child to feel, when he turned 28, how I felt at that point at 28. And again, I didn't have a lot of words for it at the time. I just had emotions. I had overwhelming emotions that didn't feel good, right? It was overwhelming. It was stressful. I felt like something was wrong with me. I had, at that point, a new infant at home, and it wasn't this joyous, bright, peaceful, wonderful, beautiful experience like social media and so many people will make it out to be. That's not the experience that every person has coming into parenthood. When we come into parenthood, if you've had trauma or survived, very dysfunctional circumstances, whatever they may be, as a child yourself, and then all of a sudden you are thrust into parenthood, whether it's planned or unplanned, that sort of entry into parenthood can really just crack you wide open and release all of the pent up trauma and emotions that you've been sort of stuffing down deep for, your entire life up until that point. There's just something about the raw emotion and the intensity of the experience of becoming a parent that just like cracks you open. And all of a sudden you are forced to deal with all of the stuff that you have been consciously or unconsciously avoiding up until that point. And that's really what happened for me. As I became a parent, and I was just like, whoa, like all of the facade, all of the like pretending I was okay, all of the achieving and performing in order to prove my self-worth and gain validation for who I was, it just became so stressful. And the rawness of becoming a mother really thrust me onto this journey. And it really was another 3 years before I could make my journey intentional, because it took that long for me to gain true awareness of what I was dealing with, and to really start to understand what healing would look like. And that was now 12 years ago. So my oldest son is 12. He'll be 13 in like 6 months or so, or 8 months. And so it's been well over a decade at this point, and I have made such drastic changes in my life. Like, I look back and my life and myself, how I feel inside is completely unrecognizable to what it was, back when I was 28 and a new mother, and even all the way throughout my whole life. I carry the memories, and I carry the understanding and all the experience that came with the difficulty in my first, 20 to 30 years of life. But I'm not chained to those experiences anymore. I have peace of mind. I understand why things happened, that it wasn't my fault. I was able to swap out the false beliefs that I had because of the dysfunctional circumstances that I grew up in with healthier beliefs. I was able to prove to myself through my journey, new accurate beliefs based on reality, based on the way I was living my life, so that I could see myself and the world around me in a different way, in a healthier way. This is versus seeing the world through my traumatic experiences. And it has made all the difference. It's 12 years later, since I became a parent. And, this isn't a parenting podcast. We might talk about some parenting things here and there, but I'm a really firm believer in the fact that, parenting advice, I'm not really sure how much I buy into parenting advice as a whole. Might get some decent tidbits here and there, but what your children need is a happy, peaceful mother or father, and they really do need, the best possible circumstances for a child is to have a happy mother, a happy father who are happy together and provide a secure and consistent family life. And I have, through a lot of hard work, been able to provide that for my kids. I'm happily married for 16 years with my husband for 22 years, if you include the dating years. And it was not easy to get to this point. Like, I look at my life now, and there is so much peace that sometimes, and this is a trauma thing too, there's so much peace that sometimes it feels boring, because there's still part of my psyche that is used to drama and dysfunctional circumstances and toxic relationships and things just always popping up. There always being some interpersonal thing that I have to deal with. Like, my psyche is still, I still went through my first 20 to 30 years of life trained to cope with those circumstances. So now it's been over a decade, and I've created very intentionally a peaceful life with lots of boundaries and lots of perspective. But sometimes that peace can feel weird. It feels uncomfortable. Sometimes even like it will feel boring, right? And I don't want to jinx anything, right? So I hate to even call it boring, but that's what will show up for us sometimes if we're not used to things being peaceful and low drama. But anyway, so my point is that I'm not going to be talking, this isn't a parenting podcast. I do not do parenting advice. I'll share with you a bit about my life as a mother and some of the things that, I'm going through. But really, when it comes down to, and what I discovered on my own journey, is that there's no parenting book that's going to improve the relationship you have with your kids, if you haven't already done the inner work that you need to do to get in touch with yourself, to replace false beliefs, to heal old wounds and traumas, like that stuff will just keep getting in the way. You can read the greatest, tips and tricks for how to discipline your children, or how to get them to sleep better, or how to, establish more peace and a cooperation in your house, right? You can read all the books in the world, but if you don't resolve the stuff that's going on inside and the stuff that you dealt with and that has shaped you all these years, coming up as a kid, as a teenager, as a 20-something, that stuff's just going to keep getting in the way. Like, you can start the day and say, I'm going to be a patient, peaceful, conscious parent. I am going to listen. I'm not going to yell. it's going to be peaceful and loving, and everyone is going to behave, and I'm not going to get, I'm not going to lose my temper. And whatever, you can say all the things you want to yourself when you wake up every morning, but if you have not dealt with that stuff that's going on inside you, it is going to fly in faster than you can even recognize it. And if you have survived a dysfunctional childhood, if you have gone through difficult stuff in the past and you have trauma in your history, I know you know what I'm talking about. Those trauma responses where we lose our temper, or we just get, the rage flies to right to our face. We feel our face get hot, or we feel our heart pounding, and we just lose our patience, and we react and we say things we don't mean to say. You know what I'm talking about. That stuff happens so fast that it's hard to catch it. And if you're sitting there trying to be a patient parent who's not going to yell and who's going to, take the right steps to make sure it's a conscious, peaceful interaction between you and your child, and those trauma responses are still flying in, it's the most frustrating thing in the world. And I remember that's how I felt when I first became a parent. I wanted to be that peaceful, conscious, patient parent, the idyllic, stay-at-home mom who just had her stuff together and was just content and peaceful and loving. And I wanted to be that person so, so badly. And I would wake up every day just with that vision in my mind. And before I knew it, these strong negative emotions, would fly to the surface with the slightest trigger. And it took me a long time to even know what my triggers were. And over time, I was able to figure out what my triggers were. But, it was a journey deep within to figure out why I even had triggers in the first place, why my physical body would respond with such intense sensations and emotions before I even knew what was going on, right? I did not understand the concept of trauma. I didn't understand the concept of dysfunctional family systems, of, the impacts of addiction or narcissism, if you've encountered that, in close proximity to yourself at any point in your life, but especially in childhood. I didn't understand any of that. There was a normal that I had that I came up in, and all of a sudden I was a parent and things felt really off. And so I went on this journey, and here's the thing about the journey, right? And I think this is still true today, even 12 years later, is that there is no real pathway. Like, there's no map for how to do it. Right? There's a million different books on a million different topics that are relevant to trauma survivors, childhood trauma survivors. But there's no real, like I said, map. There's no one telling you what to do, when to do it, what to expect to show up when you do the things, what healing is even going to look like. How do you know when you're healing, right? It's really, for me, and for a lot of you guys, I'm sure you feel like this is like a huge trial and error game. It's like a lot of shots in the dark and hoping something good comes of it. And that's really what I did. That's what I've done for the past decade plus, is try a million different things. I realized that my only guidance was my intuition, which we're going to talk a lot about intuition on this channel, and going towards things that I thought would bring me peace and joy, that I thought would improve how I felt. And I had, at this point, again, no understanding of the emotional guidance scale, which we're also going to talk a lot about, and that, healing and feeling good, is very closely tied to raising our vibration. You know, when you are trying to raise your vibe, you're just reaching for the next best emotion. And that's what I was doing early on. I was saying, okay, I'm going to go start to meditate. I'm going to learn how to practice yoga. I went and grabbed myself some healing crystals, and I got into learning about crystals and essential oils. And, you know, those were like some of the things that I came across in the very beginning when I was just trying to feel better. And they, you know, led me down a certain path that it wove in and out of different disciplines, and I came across different coaches, and, you know, I saw therapists and I saw life coaches, and I read different books, and I subscribed to different podcasts and YouTube channels, and I started to piece together my own path that has been very successful. Again, it took time. We're talking 12 years. And I don't want to discourage you and make you feel like it's going to take that long. Like, I know if you're right now a new parent and you're like, oh my God, I have all these trauma responses. I want to be this certain type of mother or father, but these emotions keep showing up and getting in the way. Like, I know you want a remedy. You want a quick remedy. You want, like, how do I fix this right now? That's the whole reason I'm writing my book, is because I want to give people a more timely and efficient way to make positive change in their lives. But it's going to take time. Like, there are no shortcuts, but you can start making these little changes in your life. You can start making different decisions. You can start doing different things that are going to calm your nervous system and help you learn about yourself, so that every day you're getting better and better, and you're responding instead of reacting, and you're starting very slowly, but you are starting to create a life that you love, that you feel good in, that's moving you closer to your dreams and your goals, and that's breaking the cycle for your own kids if you have children. You can start to make those changes. You will see change right away. The transformation, right? The overall transformation takes time. That's why they call it a journey. And here's the thing, the journey lasts a lifetime. That cliche is cliche for a reason. Okay, you're going to be working on yourself for the rest of your life. If you're an adult now, right, and you've gone through difficult circumstances your entire life up until this point, and especially during your formative years, from birth to, maybe it's through your teen years all the way, and maybe it's still happening in your 20s and 30s, right? Like, that stuff takes time to undo. And what you're going to have to do, and what I teach in my methodology, Rehab for Everyone, is that we're now trying to replace. You're driven, like, your whole life and all of your actions and all of your thoughts are driven by your beliefs about yourself and the world around you. And those beliefs, if you come from dysfunctional circumstances, they were instilled by dysfunctional people, by dysfunctional circumstances, by difficult experiences, right? And you acquired these beliefs. They were sort of forced upon you. As a kid, you don't have a choice. You're just surviving whatever circumstances are thrown at you, right? And all of a sudden you become an adult, and if you're failing to thrive in different areas of life, and we talk a lot about parenthood now because that's been my journey, but again, if you're like struggling with discipline in your life and it's, forcing you to cause weight or go into debt or not be able to keep a job, and so all the things that we struggle with in adulthood, we can trace back to false beliefs that we acquired earlier in our lives, right? So we just have to replace those false beliefs. And my whole methodology is founded on the idea that we can replace those false beliefs 100%. We can do that. And it's a matter of taking new actions to prove new truths to ourselves, right? It's not just, we're not going to think our way out of false beliefs, okay? Meditation is great. Clearing the mind, assessing what shows up. We'll leave that whole meditation conversation for another day. But, things like meditation and therapy are great components of the journey, but they are only small components of the journey. And that's something we're going to talk a lot about too. I think that the idea that you can just start going through therapy and fix all of your issues and not completely overhaul the rest of your life, I think that is that's a false narrative that is out there. It makes a lot of money for the therapist because you keep going because nothing really changes. It feels good to talk in the moment. It feels good to have someone listen to you. And I know that's one of the reasons I've gone to therapy at times, is because I've had this urge to just talk to someone. I just want someone to sit there and listen to me just talk. because you don't want to just dump all that stuff on like your spouse or your friends or whatever. Like it is good to have someone to just listen. But did that heal anything for me? Maybe, right? But it doesn't fix your life. Like it takes discipline and effort. Like you got to do the thing in your everyday life. You got to wake up every morning and make different decisions, healthier decisions that are going to change the course of, where you're headed and what you believe about yourself, and therefore like how you behave in your relationships as a parent, with your health and your marriage, whatever. It's a holistic journey. And so I've written the methodology. The book is still in progress, but we're going to talk a lot about the path and the journey here on the podcast. But really what I wanted to start off with, I'm actually just going to check and make sure I still have battery. So yeah, one of the things I really wanted to do in this podcast is really make the commitment to allowing my audience to get to know me better. I am writing my book here at my house and pouring my heart and soul into it. But the book doesn't have an audience yet because it's not finished, right? And so as I talk to people that I can help, here on the podcast, on social media, I realize that I have to go deeper in terms of letting people know who I am. Why do I talk about healing and personal development? And I've given you guys a little bit of background on that. But, a lot of people who decide to do things like coaching or writing a book or teaching any kind of class or anything, you kind of step back. If you've ever been in that position, you can relate. But you kind of step back and you say, why am I qualified to talk about this thing? Like, why should people listen to me, right? And, I come to this work because I feel deeply called to do it. Like, there is no other thing besides being a mother and a wife. There's no other work that I want to do besides share my story and share my journey and help other people who are in my shoes, because I know how lonely it can feel. I want to help them be able to make the changes and experience a transformation that I have experienced, and hopefully in a little bit more of a timely manner than I did. But even if it isn't faster, right? The speed is going to be different for everybody. I just want you to have the guidance and the hope and someone there to like hold your hand while you're doing it, because I felt pretty alone while I was doing it. And at times I still do feel a little bit alone in terms of that component of my life, because no one knows, no one in my life right now has had exactly that same kind of experience. Everyone's had a different brand of, everyone who has gone through some sort of childhood trauma or difficult experiences in the past, it's all a different mix of things, right? No one's had exactly the same experience, right? But there are groups of us who've grown up with a parent who struggled with substance abuse, or, some people grow up and they have parents who are, narcissistic or not present, or, maybe they feel like they've been abandoned, or they grew up in poverty. And, all these things can cause trauma and beliefs that drive and shape the rest of our lives. And, I just want to be there for anybody who feels like they're alone on the journey. And we're going to start shaping out this whole community. So make sure you subscribe, comment and say hello, reach out to me via email or social media, and let's start connecting. I really want to grow this community so that we can be there for each other, But anyway, so I am right now 40 years old. I've been working on my book for 4 years. I've been a mother for 12 years. And I go through my daily life, and I've always been able to make my life look good and normal. And I've done well in my career, and I've used achievement to sort of mask my insecurity and feelings of unworthiness in the past. And so, I was always the kid who was achieving, and, when you're achieving, I think a lot of people assume that, oh, you've got your shit together. Like, this girl, she knows what she's doing. She knows how to work hard. She's going to do well in life. And I have done well in life, but what people fail to realize, and this isn't about everyone who achieves and at higher levels, but what they don't sometimes think about is the fact that some people who are working so hard to achieve and perform are doing so because they have deep feelings of unworthiness, and that is masking and hiding that unworthiness, right? And then we feel like if we achieve enough and if we prove ourselves enough that we won't be abandoned if we felt abandoned in the past. And the abandonment wound is big for me. The unworthiness wound is big for me. I'm very aware of those things now, so they don't control my life. But my point in explaining that is that I always did well in sports and in school and in career. But deep down, what most people didn't know about me was that I was really struggling. I carried so much stress just going about my everyday life, trying to not lose the facade of everyone thinking I was okay and proving that I was good enough. That it was a very heavy burden to carry. And when I became a mother, within that first 3 years, I started following my intuition, not really understanding that I was on a journey, and that I was starting my intentional journey of healing and changing my life and breaking cycles for my own kids. I was starting that process, but while not really aware of it, I was really just following my maternal instincts, I think. Starting to set strong boundaries, which I did not know were boundaries at the time. I thought I was just being difficult and that I was just making people mad and not giving and failing to give other people, extended family, for example, what they wanted, right? Because I was starting to draw the line and be honest about what I wanted to do and what I thought my new family needed. And so I was starting to set boundaries based on my maternal instincts, but still not understanding that that was a healthy, functional thing to do. So I carried a lot of guilt and shame around that. And eventually, really, quite frankly, walked away from everything I once knew over the course of, a few years. And that was really a process of setting boundaries and doing what I thought was best for my family. I didn't want to hurt anybody. I didn't want anyone to be hurt or offended by my boundaries. But I was at a point where I was so distraught emotionally, not understanding why, that I couldn't keep going without setting those boundaries. I could not keep engaging in the relationships that I was engaging in. I couldn't keep taking the treatment, the way people were treating me, the lack of respect and acknowledgement. And this is all just like remnants and the residue from my dysfunctional childhood that was still creeping into my life as a 28-year-old new mom. So I just, I started setting those boundaries and I started trying to focus on feeling okay and being a present mother and enjoying my first months and years of motherhood. And that was the catalyst, those sort of first instinctual boundaries and, trying to move towards things like I mentioned, like yoga and crystals and meditation and essential oils and things that I thought would bring me peace, which they did. There's still practices that I love having in my life today. It really started me off on this journey. And, my decision to walk away from everything I once knew and a lot of the people I once knew and a lot of the people that were sort of characters in my childhood story, it shapes a lot of how I see myself even now. There's a lot that people don't understand about those kinds of separations and boundaries. And that's difficult. I mean, that's a difficult thing to carry. It gets easier over time, but there's a stigma and there is, like I said, a lack of understanding. But if you're a mother, you do what you got to do to protect your family and to heal yourself so that you can be everything that you need to be for your kids and to break cycles so that they don't have to deal with the same difficulty that you did. None of this was, none of the boundaries that I set were things that I would have wanted to do. It's a difficult loss to have to sever relationships for your own well-being. It's probably one of the most difficult things you can do in your life. And there's still a lot of grief for me associated with those things. But I recognize it now as grief. That having the strength to put those boundaries in place to protect my new family is something that I am proud of. I know that it wasn't something shameful. It wasn't something that I should be embarrassed about or feel guilty about. There's grief and it was sad and it still is sad at times. But it took a lot of strength, and it was, what my family needed. And so a lot of sort of the decisions that I've had to make to feel better, they're difficult to, be part of it's difficult to have them as part of my identity. It always sort of feels like something that I am keeping from people, right? And it's really only people the closest people to me who know that part of my story. And I think that sharing it with you guys is important because you have to know the story, the full story. Now, I'm not going to give any personal information about the people who were involved in my life, who are involved in my life. I would never give out that information. I have deep love and respect still, even where there was poor treatment for people that were in my life who aren't anymore. Deep love and respect. And so I would not share any details about that, but you guys will get enough of a gist of the story to understand where I'm coming from and to be able to relate to it, and to be able to take insights to apply to your own journey. So none of this is easy. Healing and personal development is like it's the hard work. It's hard work. It's uncomfortable. And it has to be that way. You're stepping into unknown territory to peel back the layers and learn why you are the way you are, why you think and act the way you do, why you experience trauma responses, why you're struggling in different areas of life. And it's about getting honest. It's peeling those layers, and I'm going to teach you how to peel the layers. It's digging for insights, which we'll also talk about how to do. And it's starting to shape your life in a way that will help you do all of those things. So Rehab for Everyone, the concept is that you're creating your own rehabilitation lifestyle. So that, I got the concept from, if someone struggles with substance abuse, they go off to a rehab facility and they stay there because they need to sort of step out of their everyday life, out of their routine, out of their triggers, and be able to heal and dig deep and do the work in a protected and nurturing space. Now, I do not work with addicts, alcoholics. I do not have that expertise. So if you are an addict or an alcoholic, I honor your journey. Just know that I don't have the experience to be able to guide you. But there are so many people, so many really great people online who do, and professionals and everything. I'm here to help people who may have grown up in proximity to addiction and alcoholism or dysfunctional family systems, or experienced other traumatic events that now impact their quality of life and their ability to thrive and, holistically as an adult. And so that is what I'm here to do. My program is called Rehab for Everyone. And again, it's based on my own transformation. It's how I did what I've been able to do, and how I've been able to create a happy, peaceful life for myself and for my family, my children, and, breaking cycles. And it's an everyday effort, but I feel like I've figured out a lot of the puzzle pieces. And like I said, when you come to the journey, it's like these puzzle pieces are so totally scattered. And part of the reason it takes a long time is because we're out searching for all the puzzle pieces. So hopefully what Rehab for Everyone does is it gives you the puzzle pieces in an order that makes sense, so that you have a little bit more insight into how to shape your journey and how to start to create this rehabilitative lifestyle for yourself, so that in a more timely and efficient way, you can start making those positive changes to be the person, mother, father, friend, sister, whatever, to be that person that you want to be. And it's about finding your authenticity, right? Like, you all are already that person, but you have these layers of survival and defense mechanisms that are just blocking your authenticity, right? It's fear, it's woundedness, right? That, we develop these defense mechanisms to protect ourselves because we have these false beliefs that everyone is going to hurt us like we've been hurt in the past. Everyone is going to abandon us like we've been abandoned in the past. Or these are the responses that we're going to get, or this is going to happen as a result of this. And we just are now functioning out of fear and survival instead of living a creative life. And you don't have to be an artist or a writer or a musician to live a creative life. Like, living a creative life is about actually designing, using your own original thoughts and ideas to design a life that you love, and realizing like you don't have to fit any mold that your family or that society or anybody, your friends, has set for you. Like you can actually dig deep into your mind and say, this is what I want. This is what my life should look like. This is what I want to work towards. And you can actually do those things. And by working with me, whether it's you're reading the book or coming to a class or working with me in coaching, we are going to design that lifestyle to help you start living that more creative life and start to heal and start to be able to respond to the world around you instead of react to it. And I know that that's important to you if you have a history like mine. So welcome to the podcast. If you're new here, consider subscribing, hit the notification bell. Definitely leave me a comment below to say hi and or ask me any questions. And I will be back here every week, and we're just going to talk about all these different topics. But I have to go pick my kids up at baseball camp right now, and I'm just glad to have gotten this first episode recorded. Thank you guys for stopping by. If you're new here, I have an ebook that outlines my methodology. It's called Rehab for Everyone. A lifestyle approach to healing and personal development. And that's about a 6-page PDF, so it's pretty quick to read, but it'll give you a sort of a primer on the methodology and the 4 pillars that comprise it. And the 4 pillars are boundaries, movement, exploration, and energetic self-care. So definitely check that out. I'll include a link in the description below so you can download that. It'll come right to your email, and you can head over to my website, which I'll also include a link for, and you can learn how to work with me in coaching, read some of my blog posts and some of my previous videos. And I think that's it for today. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will catch you in the next video. Take care.